Welcome to Casual Watch Talk, the podcast from the Casual Watch Reviewer YouTube channel. Join us as we talk everything watches, from watch collecting, the latest horology news and interviews. If you're not already subscribed, subscribe on your favourite podcast app. Let's dive into the show. Hi everyone, welcome back to episode 48 of Casual Watch Talk.
48. Finally older than me, so that's good.
I know, and we've got some really interesting news about the podcast, I'd say. We had an interesting news in review on Spotify, so we'll get round to that. That'll be interesting. But how have you been, Chris, more importantly?
Fairly decent. Been, dealing with the world, as most of us are, and dealing with purchasing Christmas. I don't know, how was your remote Thanksgiving? Did that go well for you?
It was interesting. We did have some friends that came over. So we live in an apartment block, and there's another couple that's as paranoid as we are about social distancing, and
right.
So they quarantine and we quarantine. So they're the only people that we really meet. So we had a sort of a Thanksgiving meal with them just
Nice.
at our apartment.
Nice.
But
Yeah, because that's the thing. I mean, we're thinking about that for Christmas. I mean, like, if you quarantine as a couple and you spend 14 days completely, like, not even, like, just getting meals delivered and just not interacting with anybody outside and no face to face, and then you trust that you have friends that do the same, then you get to hang out together. But you absolutely have to, once you get that number up to 4, 5, 6, 7, like a family, then it gets a little like, your cousin said he quarantined? Yeah, but it was 3 days ago, and he just, he's been out partying or whatever. Like, you cannot take that chance. So
yeah, I know, it's crazy, isn't it? I think I was reading today that a third of all the coronavirus cases in the world that were reported yesterday were in America. So hopefully, fingers crossed.
We did Zoom Thanksgiving. It went okay. It was okay. It was as expected. You know how Zoom has the 45-minute limit?
Yes.
So my brother had an account through his work, and he was like, "Oh, I'll set it up. Don't worry." But wouldn't you know it, 45 minutes is a perfect time limit for long distance conversations with your family.
Yes.
Long distance holidays with your family. 45 minutes. You're like, at like minute 43, I was like, okay, so I get some pie to eat or something.
I know, it's dead funny. It's the thing with the pumpkin pie thing. It's funny when you ask other people, like, "Oh, how was the pumpkin pie that your mum made?" And then people are like, "Oh yeah, it was good." Well, this year, because there was none of that, it was, people are like, "Oh, we played board games with our family over Zoom," and I'm like, "Oh, how was that?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, it was all right." So the faking enjoyment of the pumpkin pie is now the faking of the enjoyment of games over Zoom.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And next month it'll be the fruit basket. Oh, the fruit basket. Fruit basket was good. So like, so in spite of all that, we're hanging in there.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's, I think this week we're going to do another news week, and like I mentioned, a quick recap of the year on the podcast, and a big thanks to everyone that's listening. But before we start that, Chris, watch obsession. Episode 48.
48 this time around. I am on the hunt for a Panda dial chronograph.
Okay.
And there is one, and sort of in order, there is Bell & Ross did a 10-year anniversary one. This is like 2013, I think. This is a while ago, 2013, 2015, something like that. Their 10-year anniversary.
Okay.
And it is amazing, and it was limited. And so, like, all the times that we pick on limited edition stuff, when you go to find that thing, so for however much we would necessarily pick on a limited edition, after 15 years, you're not going to find it. Like, it's going to be very hard to find. So they have one that's like, I think they made 1,000 of them, something like that. And I was like, oh, that looks really good. I was like, and then it kind of got me on a tear. And I was looking at it. I was like, who else makes a good Panda dial? or reverse panda. Now, are you black dial white indices or black dial white subdials? What do you prefer? Or white dial black subdials?
Well, yeah, and there's so many, isn't there? I think.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously the Daytona is one. There's an Omega, I think, of that color scheme. But I know Dave at Detroit Mint. He's working on a Panda dial. But I can't think of one like straight off the top of my head. From Yema, they have one, I think.
Yeah. Their new chronograph looks. If I'm remembering it correctly, I'll have to look at that one. But I was looking at let's see. Kind of the standard, the German brands, Damasco's and then I moved over. I was looking at Hemmel, and I was interested. I've been interested in Hemmel for a while, but their like mechanical special editions. They have this actually a hand wind special edition. It was sold out like in seconds. It was like, whoosh. And then they did one. And I keep seeing it on Instagram, and I'm like, oh, that's great. And I keep falling into the trap because I was like, oh, that thing's great. And I click on it, and they did offer it with a Swiss mechanical movement, but they are sold out, and they've been sold out for the last, 8 months. You can get the VK, the VK.
64.
Yeah, something like that. The one with the
Walbrook's
12. Either the 12 or the 24-hour subdial that's completely useless that I'm with TJ on. But yeah, I'm on the hunt for something there. That was my obsession this week.
Wow. Yeah. Well, my obsession's been a weird one because never before have I done this in my watch collecting journey where I've bought two of the same watch. So two of the same model of watch that look similar, but twice this year I've done it. So I bought the Breitling B1, didn't I? That had the military insignia on it.
Nice.
And then I bought the actual Breitling B1. Now, I did sell the one with the military insignia back to eBay because I couldn't get it restored.
Okay.
And in fact, hopefully next week we're going to have a Breitling restorer and repairer on, a Breitling watchmaker on. Nice. So fingers crossed for that. But this week I bought, so that Walbrook that you very kindly worked on, the Neil Armstrong watch.
Thank you.
I still love the mechanical one, but I was just drawn to the quartz version. Now, there's a couple of things that were long story short, originally I backed the quartz version on Kickstarter. It said it was a Mecha Quartz 3-hander, but it doesn't have the date. So then I had a crisis of conscience where I was like, oh, I want the date. And so I upgraded to the mechanical one.
Right.
I did kind of slightly regret it because it had that awful 8-1
upgrade doing a lot of heavy lifting there.
Yeah, exactly. So you very kindly upgraded the movement to the DG movement. I've just talked about this on my watch collection review, but then I still had this bee in my bonnet about I really want to see what the quartz is like. I'm just gonna have to buy it, and it was expensive just to see it. It was $300 on a beads of rice bracelet, but a couple of interesting things about it are, well, first of all, it doesn't have the date, so I'm just going to see how that sits with me. But the other thing is, it's a Mecha Quartz 3-hander. Have you ever seen the Mecha Quartz 3-hander?
I think so on video, not in person.
Yeah, so honestly, I don't know why more people don't use this Mecha Quartz 3-hander. Well, I do because it doesn't have the date.
Right.
But it's got a sweep in second hand.
Right, yeah.
It's I think it must be 5 beats a second or something. But honestly, you couldn't tell it apart from maybe like a 4R, and not 4R35, the 7S26 movement because of that. So it's a little bit juddery.
Or something, yeah, 21600, yeah.
But it looks the business. You would be fooled into thinking that this is a mechanical if you didn't know better, if you were just looking for that tick. I think the reason that it's not used more is it hasn't got the date, and also the battery life they say is 2 years.
Right. Yeah,
whereas
that
normal
was the
quartz
thing.
Is normal quartz 5 years or so, or
at
sort
least
of 3 to 5 years.
Yeah. I've seen some variation between 3 and 5 years. Depending on like a lot of factors. Like if it's a fashion watch, there it is, the cheapest battery they possibly could have purchased for that. But if it's like Christine has a Frederic Constant dress watch, moon phase, and it's actually nice because it's got a battery in it, and 5 years, no problem. So now you have two Walbrooks.
Yes.
But one of them doesn't have the date. You are just in a quandary now. So one of them doesn't have a date, but it's the mechanical quartz or mecha quartz.
Yes.
Sweeping seconds, low battery life. The mechanical one was doing okay, and then not doing as well timing wise. Is that the story there?
Yes. So you timed it and it was impeccable. It was less than 1 second a day variance, and I was wearing it every day. And then for some reason, the last week or so, it's dropped to like -8 seconds. Now I've only been timing it on my app.
Okay.
I'm usually pretty careful with my watches.
Now this is just from troubleshooting, like watchmaker nerd questions. Is it because if it gains time, if it loses time, certain things, like maybe if it was magnetized, maybe it hit it with some accidentally, like got it near a solid magnet, maybe? I don't know. Do you have one of those demagnetizers?
I don't have one anymore. It's possible. I always think of, and maybe this is a myth that we can dispel, I always thought if a watch was magnetized that it was a huge, like it would lose 2 minutes or gain 2 minutes, or that the sway was quite great.
Not that I've seen. So it really depends on the amount of field that it was hit with, and then how close, and then where inside the watch. So I mean, if you zapped the mainspring or the hairspring, excuse me, with neodymium, like rare earth magnet, like directly on it, right? Obviously, it's going to take a super nosedive immediately. You're going to see some funky timing stuff going on. But I've seen in the past, I've had I think I magnetized one of my my Seiko Turtle at one point, and it was just enough where it was just giving me, like, I was timing it, and then all of a sudden it took a turn, just like what you described. And then like it starts losing like 15 plus seconds a day. I think it was like 15 seconds a day. And I'm like, I don't know. Demagnetized it. Seemed like it came back and was okay. So it's one of those things I feel like field strength and like exposure, like the same amount, like did you press it against a speaker, or maybe it was this, like, sometimes door latches, like in cabinets and stuff, will have little magnets in them, and you never know if you just, wand the thing past it and it just gets a little magnetized. I don't know, but something to look at. And if you want a end of year gift idea, watch people, you can either get yourself or buy another watch person. The demagnetizer is really easy. Like, you can get an inexpensive one. What are they, like $12 on Amazon? It's just it's literally just an electronic transformer that creates a magnetic field, an alternating magnetic field. You place your watch on it, and then you slowly pull it away. Tons of YouTube videos on how to do it. So
there's also an app on the phone. Now, I don't know how it works really by that Lepsy Maker.
Oh, correct. Yeah.
So I'm going to try that. I mean, I think it basically uses the tiny magnets that are in the speaker for... You're not supposed to put it on your phone. You're supposed to hold it near the speaker, so the top of the iPhone. Yeah,
so most accelerometers have a magnetometer built into them. So that actually knows the north-south. It knows the poles. Yeah.
Right. So I'll give that a go.
Yeah.
I'll give that a go.
That's a good suggestion. And see what you get. And you're right. Yeah, a lot of times that sensor is often in different places in phones or tablets, things like that. So you kind of got to know where that sensor is. And then it's easy enough to find it with a magnet, or if you've got a screwdriver or something metal that'll find it. So cool.
Well, I'll try that app and then we'll see whether it's magnetized or not. But yeah, I've been liking this quartz. I've been going through a bit of a quartz phase, as you'll know from my most hated video that I've uploaded recently, which is hilarious. Right? Now, joking aside, I've got such a great subscriber base that I don't often get a lot of dislikes on my uploads, but for some reason I uploaded my collection review, and it seems to have really rubbed, well, at least 6 people up the wrong way.
Right. So, some rough comments in there too, but definitely, yeah.
Yeah, so if anybody's not seen it, I've inadvertently, would you say, Chris, I've inadvertently pared my collection down to 3 watches.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. No, I don't. I won't give you inadvertently. I feel like you did it on purpose. But I mean, I feel like you know what you want.
Yes.
And I definitely feel there's an element where, you know, you're a YouTube watch reviewer and you get to see, you know, and try on stuff all the time.
Yeah.
So I feel like you're not you know, so it's funny how like, and some of the comments I'll definitely pull out. Like some of the comments were, you know, you had a tutor, you had a Speedmaster, and in a lot of collectors' minds, that's like 2 on the list of the 10 that you need. And then you get a free Rolex at the end, I think is what happens. so no, but I mean like those types of collectors that are just like, you know, okay, well, you know, I need a Speedmaster, I need a Tudor, Black Bay, I need a Omega, I need the Planet Ocean, or I need the, you know, I need a chronograph, I need a Flieger, I need this, you know, Submariner, I need the, you know, date, and I get it. It's fine. It's just that's not who you are as a collector.
No, and the interesting thing was that a lot of people commented, "Oh, that Speedmaster's gone up in price now."
Oh, right.
Like, and I was like, "Well, yeah. Well, first of all, I sold it for double what I paid for it, but I did have to hold it on." So I'll just do a reply to that. Mm-hmm. First of all, I did make a little bit of money on it, but I didn't sell it because I thought I was going to make money on it.
Right.
I sold it because I kind of fell out of love with it a bit after 12 years. Plus, we've talked about this on the channel where I got it serviced, and then it became like a precious object to me because it was so well serviced.
Exactly.
Highly recommend Omega servicing. But I actually used the money and then inadvertently put it into my investment account. And the way that the year's been going, it has gone up in price. So, and the thing is, it wasn't that easy to liquidate. It still took me a month, maybe 6 weeks on Chrono24 to find a buyer. I then had to post it, which cost a fortune. The buyer had to pay import duty because it went to the UK on the other side. So it's not, when you say, oh, that watch has gone up in value, yeah, but it might have gone up in value, but you still got to liquidate it to get that value. So it wasn't like it's easy to liquidate. It's not like I'm suddenly sat here thinking, oh, I could have got an extra $500 for it.
Yeah, it brings it for me. It's 2 points. It's the first point is the endowment effect, which is, so that's great that you think that this thing is worth X, but it's not. Nothing is worth anything until someone else is literally handing you the money for it. That's when that is worth, you know. So you get this idea. You're like, oh, it's worth $4,000. You're like, well, yeah, in your mind, but until you go on eBay, Chrono24.
It's funny. I made that upload about Rolex a while ago, and I need to redo that upload because I kind of messed up. I wasn't looking at the camera properly, but anyway, if you'd bought a Rolex Submariner in 2010, if you had the foresight and you were stood outside a Rolex AD and you were like, I'm either going to spend $8,000 on a Submariner, or I'm going to buy $8,000 worth of Amazon shares.
Right.
If you knew what you knew now in 2020, you would have never even set foot in that Rolex
exactly.
AD.
Of course. Yeah.
So it's got up in value to maybe $15,000 to Submariner, but the Amazon shares, you would be looking down the nose of $20,000 or $30,000 profit.
Yeah, and exactly, and that's my second point. And my second point is, yes, gas was only $1 when I was a teenager. It is no longer $1. It costs a lot more now, and food costs a lot more, and housing costs a hell of a lot more, et cetera, et cetera. So you're like, well, yes, you know, could you have waited for it to go up in value? I guess so, but also what your dollar is worth, you know, that kind of thing. So
yeah, it's funny, and maybe I'll do another episode on this about how I love watches and I love collecting them, but I don't get overly emotionally attached to them where I wouldn't sell them, except for the ones that I inherited, and they're important because of the people who own them were important to me.
Yeah.
The Speedmaster I liked because of its history, but it didn't hold importance to me. I got married in the watch, but I'm still married to my wife. Like, my wife's still there. I don't need the watch to remind me that I'm like of my special marriage day, because my wife is still around.
Yeah, you certainly you definitely triggered a bunch of people, because I feel like it's that that precious object that you have to collect them all. And then for you to just be like, I don't need this anymore. It's not important to me. I mean, as a person, like, good on you to be at that state, to be like, it's just a thing, And I think a lot more people could use that sort of thinking, I can think of same thing with like cars. There's
I do love my car, actually.
yeah. But I mean, but that same sort of like, it's a car, you're going to drive, like, where they're like, oh, I drove it and it got scratches on the front bumper, and now I have to like completely seal it so that it'll never be scratched. And then soon I will start a museum and have people, pay a donation to see my 1989 Corvette. And you're like, no one cares. Like, no one cares. And it's not a precious object. So are you going to drive you're going to drive your car, or you're not going to drive your car? Like, that's the, so you're sort of, I think you're one step ahead, but also, for those, that are maybe, and then you have to look at the fact that maybe they're, that's their goal. That's their collection goal. And for you to say like, oh, I don't need the Speedmaster anymore. For me, maybe they took that as maybe like you don't need a Speedmaster. That's not what you're saying. You're just
absolutely
saying,
not. It's a great watch.
Exactly. So maybe there was a little confusion there. So
I sold the Tudor, and I mentioned, I don't know, it sounds funny even when I repeat it back, that about the bracelet annoying me so much, but it was, and I don't know whether this is being like from the north of England, but it was the principle of the thing that annoyed me. It was the principle of, if you could have got it on the watch, it was $400, but aftermarket it was $800. I know, and there was nobody would give you a price, because I went into a couple of jewelers. I'm like, oh, how much is the bracelet if I bought the watch without it? I went into Watches of Switzerland in New York, the flagship store for them. I went in local ADs here, the AD that I bought it from, and everyone was super cagey about what the bracelet was aftermarket, because they're like, oh, well, there's so few of them now, Tudor haven't really released it. And I think it's because everybody knew that, oh, well, Tudor are about to stiff you for the best part of $800. It's ridiculous. It's a piece of stainless steel that is machined into a bracelet.
Yep. It's like, they're doing like, again, car options. It's just like, if you don't add that option when you buy the car, it's so much. I mean, some companies charge so much money for it. You're like, oh, can I have the cool spoiler? Oh, okay. Well, this is the cool spoiler package, and it adds $58. And you're like, okay, sure, whatever, cool spoiler. But like, if you want it and the car doesn't have it, you're like, that'll be $570. And you're like, what? You're like, what the hell? So it's just a dirty trick.
Exactly. And I know this is a very fragile thin of moral ice that I'm standing on saying this about Tudor, because I will argue to the death that Apple make the best computers. But the same thing will happen there. Like, if you don't buy RAM at the point of sale on some of the, especially the new Mac Mini, you cannot upgrade it. It is unupgradable.
Physically impossible. Yeah,
exactly. So I know I'm on a very thin piece of moral ice here.
Yeah.
Anyway, well, before we dive into a couple of news stories and then some interesting podcast news that's happened this year, and a big thanks to everyone, we'll just pause for a very quick ad break.
Hey, it's Chris from the Casual Watch Talk podcast. As our longtime listeners know, we often talk about cars here on the pod, and that's no coincidence. Like a lot of mechanical watch lovers, we're both into cars and racing. A couple years ago, I curated a collection of automotive-inspired straps and started the Campionato Club. Campionato Club watch straps celebrate the rich history of automotive liveries with their inspired colors. Available in a single-pass NATO, two-piece, and our new super comfy elastic NATO. Check out Campionato Club on the web. That's championship in Italian, CAMPIONATO.club.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Casual Watch Talk. Well, first off, it's been a fantastic year on the podcast, and we really appreciate everybody that's listened. And then everybody that's joined us over on the Facebook group as well. One of the ways that we release the podcast is on Spotify, and Spotify did a very interesting 2020 year in review for Chris and I. Chris hasn't seen this yet, so I'm going to hit him with some pretty interesting stats First of all, I'd like to start with our number one growth area.
Number of times Kris said Go ahead. Oh, sorry. Different stats.
No, they don't have that stat. That would be I mean, the same for me as well.
Right.
So our number one growth area is actually in the United Kingdom. Okay, so what do you think about that?
Oh, it's I mean, expat versus, I mean, the United States start versus expat. Maybe they just, yeah. You just gave the link to a lot of your friends from home. That's what happened.
Maybe. Well, do you know who didn't give a link to a lot of their friends at home?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Kris, unfortunately, out of 52% of our US audience, only 5% are from Massachusetts.
Oh, wow. Sad.
But 20% are from California, so you've moved to the right place.
I mean,
you
I
are
guess
more
I'm
liked
here,
in California.
Yeah. I've not been, I looked, I was 15, going on 15 years now, so maybe I could start, we could just change accents with a Harvard, Ka. So wicked watch accent. Is that what we need to do?
Our podcast has been downloaded or listened to in 38 different countries.
Oh, that's great.
It's amazing.
All right.
And if you listen to all 39 episodes this year, if you were a listener that listened to all 39 episodes, you've listened to 1,855 minutes of Kris and I talking.
Okay. All right. That takes some patience, I guess, or one hell of a commute.
We really, really appreciate it.
Yes.
And then I am just about to both thank our Swedish listeners, who is after the UK, Australia, USA, and Canada, Sweden is our next biggest listener base.
All right.
So I'm going to say to our Swedish fans, I'm just about to murder this, but you'll have to forgive me. Tack for att du lyssnar, which either means thank you for listening or I've really offended some people.
All right. Maybe, probably, yeah, maybe. Well, you tried. That's good.
I think we tried.
Tried.
Big thanks.
Yeah,
and a big thanks
absolutely.
to all of our listeners across the world. We really appreciate you listening.
That's great.
Well, that was a little bit of fun. I've also posted on the Facebook group the little link to the wrap-up that Spotify did for us, so you'll be able to see some of the stats on there. Let's continue with some news stories. Now, it's been a pretty light news week, I think, in the watch world. The only one that I could see was there's a big story about Hodinkee. So Hodinkee have just done another round of funding, investment funding for their expansion, whatever that means. Mm-hmm. And the documents reveal that with their new funding, that the whole of the Hodinkee business is valued at $100 million. And they've also got a new CEO that came from Mr. Porter, which I know the website, but I didn't realize it was owned by Richemont.
Oh, okay.
So what do we think about that? $100 million.
$100 million. Well, I mean, I think as a company, any time that you can, as a company, list a thing on your website for $3,800 for $5,000, and in, I don't know, 28 seconds have all of them purchased. I think that's a valuable company, no matter what they sell. So
yes, I know, and I'm dying to make a joke about how they raised $40 million by making 40 desk clocks that are $1 million a piece.
Right. I know, but I mean, as a company, I give it to them. Good job, Hodinkee. Amazing. But also at the same time, you are alienating a market while you're moving up. So.
And I suppose it shows that there's a lot of interest in watches in general, mechanical watches, we'll say. But as if swooping in from that success, maybe a future way to disgruntle their reader base is that, did you hear that they're releasing a John Mayer limited edition G-Shock?
I did not, but I'm already searching for it right now.
At the time that Kris and I are recording this, all you can see on their website is a countdown digital clock, which is saying that in 2 days, 14 hours and 20 minutes, you can log in to be blessed with the opportunity to buy this John Mayer Hodinkee G-Shock. I'm guessing it's going to be the 5600 in white. I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, so this brings up a good point, and maybe we need to like take this strand of thought here. I was just having a conversation with my brother, and we were talking about like the impossibility of getting a PlayStation right now.
Yeah.
Because and you've seen this movie, Sam, you know what's going on. What is happening is you can't walk into a Best Buy and get it because quarantine, whatever, blah, 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 blah. So you have to buy it online. Well, guess what? 1,000 flippers have already bought them online, and they're on eBay for $1,800. And, you know, and crazy prices. We've seen this movie, and it's just online e-commerce retailers not only in general, but like for all of them need to figure this out.
Absolutely. And eBay will argue this till their dying day, that they'll justify this morally, but they are the biggest, and all of them, you know, Craigslist and so on, they should ban people reselling items that are just released.
I feel that it's almost, see, I would say the opposite. I would put it on the manufacturer. Okay. You know, because, you know, kind of your stainless steel comment. Like, it's not like we're running out of stainless steel, you know, and the same sort of thing. Yes. But they could come up with, you know, this like log in, create an account. Now, maybe I've assumed and we're spoken too soon. But if like you have to create an account and you can only order one with an account creator and the account is tied to a real human. I mean, listen, I know scalpers are going to get around it. I know we're going to make 15 accounts for the cousins. I get it. But at the same time, it isn't like I can just go, oh, PlayStations? Yes, I'll have 1,000. Enter, gone. All PlayStations now. You know what I mean? Or 60 of them or whatever. You know what I mean?
Or another way of doing it, I don't know why I didn't think of this, but I've got I'm a big Xbox guy, but, you know, you've got your gamer ID on Xbox, so why not offer it to the PlayStation members of their first? Because they obviously have a PlayStation already. Yeah. And both my brother and I, same frustration. I have the money for this. I have the wherewithal to buy it. And I can't. Like, so frustrating because you're just like, this is not some ancient stone that's only one of. This is a manufacturing process. Like, we need to figure this out. So it really sours the whole purchasing experience, and especially so now that we are forced or mostly online. I mean, I don't know if you saw the news, but it was like, you know, cyber everything. And then they were like, you know, online shopping, incredible increase. You're like, yeah, no duh. Kind of. It's funny because we went into the local Target here and they had a frame board outside saying, we don't have the new Xbox. We don't have the new PlayStation.
Right.
And I was like, wow, there's a bit coming up to Christmas as well.
Yeah. And I think that those companies are either they're just negligent, or they're playing some game, because there was a whole thread on the PlayStation and the Xbox, their distribution, where they were like, oh yeah, we're going to send, you know, oh, we have, you can order 60 of them. And so Target or whatever, this particular Target is like, yeah, we'll get 60 of them, fine. And they're like, okay, here's your 3.
They do that to the Rolex ADs, don't
they?
Right.
I know. It's exactly what I said to my brother. I was like, oh, I've seen that before. I know what that. Yeah, it sounds exactly like where they just, you just ask for an allocation and then you don't know what you're going to get. And then your you know, mysterious palette of stuff shows up and it has X, Y, and Z on it, depending on some formula that the manufacturer has determined that you're going to sell. Ugh. Just let me buy it. Just let me buy the John Mayer Hodinkee G-Shock.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, I mentioned this on the podcast before, but that Hodinkee Oris that they made, that beautiful Oris that they made, with the grey dial, I'm sure if they kept that as a consistent model, I don't know how I would ever prove this, but I feel like they would have probably sold more than making it the way they did limited edition, because they're going for silly prices.
Yeah, and it's not like they're collecting the $200 in tax money every time that thing gets resold on eBay, and it's not like they're collecting the extra $600-700 that they're collecting on eBay. So that's other people's money that are making that. So it's like, you know, they made their initial money, but that's it.
That's a very interesting point, isn't it? And I know I've been sort of flirting with the idea of buying the new Xbox, but that's something that put me off big time. Was like, hey, which is annoying because I bought. We're in like casual video game talk here, but I really like a game called Assassin's Creed.
Oh yeah,
like my favorite. So I bought the new one, the Valhalla one, and it's designed for both the new Xbox and the current Xbox One. But the cutscenes are really laggy. It almost encouraging you to. It's this forced obsolescence, isn't it?
Right. They made it just fast enough where you're like frustrated a little bit to be like, I could play this on better hardware. That's funny.
Exactly. It makes you you get like because I'm thinking it now. I'm like, oh, maybe this would be a lot smoother on the new Xbox. So I'm like, oh no, I'm falling into the trap here.
Yeah, exactly.
It's really interesting what you said about when we've talked about limited editions in the past, and we've talked about these aren't made of scarce resources and things like that. Todd, who on our Facebook group, who's our resident Seiko expert, and in fact he bought the John Mayer limited edition G-Shock to my attention, but like a lot of my Seiko knowledge that I've stolen from him, I'll just play it off as if I'd come up with that idea. But he's been looking for a Omega, and he found this, and I didn't know this. It's the James Bond Seamaster. So the James Bond Seamaster that we're used to seeing, but Omega have released one in platinum, and they want 50 grand for it. I can't fathom, because platinum ounce for ounce is a little bit cheaper than gold. You can buy 2 troy ounces of platinum. Is
it now? It used to be more, but
yeah, gold's gone crazy at the moment.
Oh, that's okay. Okay, yeah.
Troy ounce of pure platinum. Say it's 2 grand or 3 grand.
Yeah,
it's not 5 times the price of what the normal standard Omega is. Maybe it's 6 grand with tax.
Right.
That's a hell of a leap from $6,000 to 50. You would have to not care about money to buy this watch.
Yes.
It's almost an obscene waste of money.
Yeah, that FU money. Yeah.
But all the good that could be done with that $42,000.
I know.
I mean, you could buy an entire watch collection with that. Yeah. And nobody is going to know that this Seamaster is made of platinum, because it just looks like the steel version.
Yeah. That like hidden money desire. I don't know. I don't know who gets this. I don't. No, we are not definitely we've talked about this on the show before. We are not the audience for that watch. No. So it's cool. Omega, go make your, mark up your platinum by ounce. So.
You saw an interesting upload that Generelli did, didn't you? And I haven't seen this yet.
It was really good. Yeah, she did giving watches as gifts. You'll have to. It's easy to find her channel, but it was a really good idea, and she had some interesting comments and suggestions about giving watches as gifts. And my takeaway, and we should talk a little bit about, we've got the holiday season coming up, so we can talk a little bit about that. And having had attempted to give watches as gifts or given watches as gifts, she made a couple of good points. First, just some general, like the size, if you're going for, so men, if you're buying for ladies, women, 36 is still a giant size watch. So
yes.
So you're like, it wasn't, but 15 years ago, men were all walking around with 36 millimeter cased watches, and now that can be it seems like a small size. It's not. I ran into this when I bought my wife the Stova, and it was like a 36 option, and then the 40, and then I was like, there was no way 40 mil, and it didn't have like a bezel or anything. This is a Stova, like a minimalist, their Bauhaus style color, and it's just all dial. And so if it's all dial, just like just like a man's watch. I mean, you take a 40 mil Orient Bambino, and it looks a giant. Even compared to something with a bezel.
Yeah, it's funny you should say that. I've got that, if you watch my collection review, I've got that CWC watch, which I ended up giving to my father-in-law, and unfortunately when he passed away, it came back into my collection. I've been trying to persuade my wife to wear it because I think it looks really cool on the NATO, but it dwarfs her wrist. It's like me wearing a 45 or 48 millimeter watch.
It's a big, I mean, that is, and there is a style now called the boyfriend watch, where women will wear a larger men's size watch, a 40 mil watch, a 30, something like that. But that's a style question that,
and I wonder whether this will be a question that comes up with the fact that the Submariner has increased, because I worked with a lot of women who can pull off a Submariner.
Right.
It looks great paired with jewelry and stuff. The previous one that was smaller,
mm-hmm.
but I've heard a couple of I know I used to work with somebody. She had the Kermit one, and she was
mm-hmm.
saying that the biggest problem is that the bracelets will not go. They can only be reduced so much.
Right.
Because of the taper.
And then you run out of links, because the first 4 links on both sides are the taper links.
Yeah.
And then the clasp is, 20 something millimeters. And so then you're like 20 plus 20. So yeah, we're down to, so if you're down under, 60 centimeters, or not 60 centimeters, sorry. If you're down under that size, small size, the other thing that was interesting was she mentioned everyday use. So what this person would sort of, what are they going to wear it with? Are they going to know? I would be hesitant to get someone a dress watch for this reason. Yes. Because you're like, here's a nice dress watch. And then the next time you see them, they're banging it around under the car. And you're like, what have you done?
It's funny you should say this. One of my watches that you'll never see on my collection review, and I never wear it, is a watch that my mum... This is the biggest issue with buying a watch for somebody who is a watch collector, because we're all really picky. And not only are we picky about what we like, but our tastes change, don't they? So one day you're I'm really into chronograph. Like me, I'm awful with this. Oh, I'm really into mechanical, and now I'm really loving quartz, and now I'm
right.
Whereas my mum got me this watch that is, she bought it from the Imperial War Museum in
mm-hmm.
London. So she did that very loving thing that mums do, where they're like, oh, I remember when you were a kid, you really liked this war museum, and so I bought you this watch. I'm like, yeah, that was 32 years ago, Mum. I really appreciate the offer, but so unfortunately, she bought me this sort of it's a quartz watch, gold sort of color with Winston Churchill's face on it, and then it's got a quote of Winston Churchill around it. It was a lovely thought, and I've told her this, but it's definitely not a watch I would wear. Right. I don't know where I would wear it.
Yeah,
either.
I can't. Yeah. It's a nice gesture. And I was just about to say, a lot of this is fraught with disappointment, and I have a couple of my own suggestions as to maybe rules that you could follow.
Yes.
And my rules are, if they are younger. So about, 5 years ago, I got my youngest brother, who is 10 years younger than me, a Seiko mechanical, the mechanical field watch, the SNG, that everybody, $80 on Amazon, $90 on Amazon, whatever it was. And it's one of those things where it's if he's interested in mechanical watches, this will definitely spark that interest. If he's not, whatever, he'll enjoy this watch. It's self-winding, keeps decent time, it's waterproof, etc. So you sort of and Jenny kind of in her video, she said, if they even wear a watch, so that was the other thing too, because you're if you just see someone and you think oh, they would look good with a watch on, but some people are just I don't want to have anything on my wrist. It feels weird when I have anything on my wrists, or I haven't worn a watch in 20 years or whatever. So I would say young, and then anyone who's older but has definitely shown some enthusiasm for watches, so that you would say, and again, it's all about curbing your disappointment, where you would say, I think this person would enjoy this watch, they could add it to their collection. And it wouldn't be a disappointment if they weren't wearing it every day and it wasn't this, like magical thing. I mean, I think that we put too much into gift giving these days, where we think it's got to be this like magical thing.
Yeah, I actually agree with you, because I think this is one of the many. This is why it's fraught with issue buying a watch for somebody. Even honestly, Kris, I don't know whether I could pick a watch bang on that you would like. Do you know if
right? Yeah,
because you really have to understand somebody and the types of watches that they like and the type of things that they're into to buy them a watch as a watch collector. I think it is quite a difficult thing unless you ask them or.
Yeah, I was going to say I feel you have a gauge of how interested you are in the hobby, whether it be watches or anything that you would buy a gift for. And it's interesting. So you have to you want to find someone who's between 0 and 10 is like a 3, where they're they enjoy a nice watch, but they don't really care. They don't have an opinion on Swiss movements. They don't have any sort of idea of the cost structure and the importation and the movement and how it's made. They might appreciate a mechanical thing. They might appreciate a mechanical watch. Okay. You want that person that's like a 2.5 to a 3. Once you get past a 7, like you said, I mean, I could think of probably 10 watches that you might be interested in, but I guarantee 5 of them you're gonna be like, no.
It is funny, and the other thing as well, this is why I never understand, and thankfully it doesn't happen on our Facebook group so much, and I wouldn't mind if it did, but especially like the urban gentry, for example, I think people who are new into watch collecting, they rightly go there because it's a great source of advice.
Totally.
But when they're like, would you buy this watch, or what would you recommend for under $1,000? And you're like, look, that is a question that is at least 50 questions long.
Yeah.
How much? I say this for people at work, and I had a conversation with somebody at work this week about watches, and I've one or two things is Hamilton is always the default, isn't it? It's like Hamilton, good value for money.
Yep.
But then I've started saying, look, how do you feel about American watchmaking? Because you can get something really unique, maybe made in. I was chatting to a guy, Jason, who just started at our work. A big shout out to him if he's listening to the podcast. He's from Illinois. I'm like, actually, that's a great place to find a watch, either an old watch or a new watch company that started.
Yeah,
get something that's localized to you that really means something.
Yeah.
Instead of just going into these high street stores. And I think we were talking about this on I forget whether it was on the Facebook group as well, where I was thinking that I think like you said, if you're a watch collector but you don't know enough yet, you can fall into this idea that an expensive watch is a good watch.
Right. Yes.
And like you said, if you're a 3, then that is risky. That's where you need advice from people, maybe.
Yeah, right, exactly. Where you're like, oh, I saw this fashion watch on Instagram, and I'm really, this I am drawn to this, and yes, please, if anything, like step in immediately and be like, oh my God, no, don't look at you know what I mean, like don't look at that. I find, and for other things, I try to recognize when I am not when I'm not really interested in it as a hobby or as an interest, as in its expertise, etc. Where I'm just like just random example, like chef's knives.
Yes,
I'm sure there is a Reddit forum and a podcast and dedicated to just this, right? To just this, but I don't care. Like I'm sure whatever. And so all I want to do is I want to break through and I want to be like, hi guys. Yeah. So just give me the best value for me for what I need to do, chef knife, and let me buy it and let me feel good about my purchase, because everyone on the channel is like, oh yeah, it's pretty good. You know what I mean? So it's like very much like I'm drawn to watches that do that. Like on Instagram where I'll post up a picture and everyone's like, yeah, it's a really good watch. And you'll recognize it, like Hamilton, another one, like those brands sort of, I am drawn to those brands for the solution there, you know, that they could just solve that problem. Like, oh, I just want a decent watch. This is mechanical, and I'm kind of interested. You're like, okay, cool. You know?
It's funny we're doing this. It's funny you should mention about Chef's Knife. We're doing the exact same thing with mattresses. And there's this guy who makes just some incredible mattress-based content for YouTube. But I feel sorry for him because he's always asking for subscribers, but it's like a mechanics channel. You wouldn't subscribe to a mattress channel because you're like, tell me the mattress to buy, I've bought it.
And then I'm out. Right. You get your one view and that's it.
I don't want a collection of mattresses.
Exactly. Welcome to the mattress room. Have a seat anywhere.
Yeah, well, I guess that's probably there's a very interesting, probably a very funny joke there between things that turn on a watch collector and things that wouldn't turn on a mattress collector. Patina. You definitely don't want a patinaed mattress.
This is a 1990s model. They don't make them like this anymore.
No, exactly. There was
Are these stains original? Are these original stains?
No, we had it serviced and they steamed off half of them. Or
right.
Yes, there was a defect in the materials we used and it turned brown.
Right.
You're like, I definitely don't want that mattress then. Whereas a watch collector, the loom turned brown. Like, here's an extra $15,000.
Wait, they made one with red stitching one time? Oh, I gotta get that one.
There was a misprinted label on the mattress. That's me.
I know. But you're absolutely right. It's like you would only go to that channel one time to get that advice, and that's the thing. Like if you're buying a watch for someone, just keep that in mind because it's definitely very fraught with danger.
Yeah, and if you want a top 10 watches to buy in a certain category, I don't think there's a single genre of that Teddy Balbazar hasn't done and hasn't done well. So go to his channel.
Exactly.
Well, that's been really cool. Well, that's been awesome, Kris. Thanks for that. And thanks to everyone that's listened to the podcast. As always, we really appreciate you listening, and we'll see you next time on Casual Watch Talk. Thanks, guys. Bye.